I invite you to enter with me into that deep space of questioning, that deep space of presence, which holds room for meditation, for reflection, and for the deep ask of prayer. I invite you to lower your gaze or close your eyes and to be fully present in this moment, in this place, in this time, which is unique in our being. Enter into this place as a place of contemplation. Enter into this place as a place of deep introspection and reflection. Allow yourself the gift of being present to the deepest joys and the deepest cries and the deepest asks of your heart. This is a time of turning. It is a time for marking the natural cycle of our world through its seasons. And as that natural cycle of the world is turning, this is a time and a place for marking that turning within our own selves. So in this space that we create together, notice where your life has grown and expanded since this point in time last year. Perhaps notice also where you have shrunk or withered, where you have lost, where you have grieved, where you have triumphed, and where you have struggled. Because before we turn, we need to spend some time in the moment before the turning, capturing it as a snapshot of where we are and what we are. This is a time for celebrating growth, and that time is soon upon us. For that which does not grow will stagnate and lose its vitality. And yet, before we grow, we need to germinate. We need to look within and catch up with ourselves. So take this time to look at what is, both the ugly and the beautiful, the frightening and the hopeful. Far too often, we move before we know our bearings. We dash before we have a chance to be. Only by understanding what we seek can we truly turn towards the hope and promise that will bring us what we need and want. This is the gift of this season of dark, this time of waiting, these moments of being fallow. In the silence that follows, in this silence that we create together, unique in our own search and yet comforted by the presence of other seekers, rest in the moment of knowing. This is the moment for being which comes before the time of turning. May we hold in our heart that which we turn toward, our own search for meaning, and as part of the search of meaning of this family of humanity that still has many questions to answer as this journey continues. May this new season be one of reaping truth, of sowing the seeds of love, and may we be the ones to make it so. I invite you to imagine yourself as a tree, a big, strong tree, with limbs twisting and reaching up towards the sky, and you have spent most of this year in growth, using all your energy to generate new cells and take in the warm offerings of the sun, in producing oxygen, taking up more space, becoming larger. Yet now, the days are shorter, the nights are colder, and the sun is at its weakest, and you are not feeling much like growing right now. So you pause for just a few moments, simply to be. And you move in towards yourself, towards the warmth, and you concentrate on connecting with the ground beneath you, which still holds the nutrients in all that has accumulated through the year. Your roots are warm in the rich, dark loam of the earth, and the energy you have is directed downward towards those roots, towards that rootedness which holds you in place. In the warmer and lighter months, you worry about unfolding, unfurling, and growing, blooming, and giving all those outward signs of growth. But in this time of greater darkness and rest, you can, in fact, tend to your roots. You can tend to your being. You can tend to assessing where you are and realizing it in a way you haven't had the chance to do yet. You can nourish those dark places within and underneath you. You can lie fallow in this season. You can experience the patience of germination and the gathering of nutrients from the detritus of life, the depth of unseen growth. So right now, I invite you to experience that groundedness, to place your feet, if they're not, firmly on the floor, and to find yourself grounded in your breath. To take this brief time of quieter moments in this very busy season and connect to the great and teeming life all around you by the thread of your breath, which connects you to all other breathing things, the two-legged, the four-legged, the stemmed and trunked and multi- and single-celled. In this time of the year, we feel the turning of the year with a particular force. The pinnacle point of the shortest day occurred yesterday at about 9:11 a.m., at least in Concord and Martinez, where we're just slightly ahead of some of the rest of you west of us. So it's a good time to be grounded. My Martinez friends are really appreciating that. It's a good time to be grounded. It's a good time to know where we are. In this turning of the season, people of cultures from around the northern hemisphere of the world have had long rituals of connecting with the turning of the year, this season of shortest days and brightest moons and most tepid suns. And of course, there are traditions also in the southern hemisphere, but right now they are celebrating the summer solstice. These natural rhythms of the year invite us into the rhythm of rest and reminiscence, remembering back over the year that has been, and giving us a chance to prepare for that which will come. Some among us may remember it or understand it best this way. The December solstice marks that time when the sun reaches its most southerly declination of negative 23.5 degrees. In other words, that's the moment when the North Pole is tilted 23.5 degrees away from the sun and is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn. And if that wasn't edifying for all of you, it comes down to this: a little bit of sunlight, a lot of darkness, a time to settle, a time to contemplate. As NPR's Margot Adler, a practitioner of earth-centered spirituality herself, notes, the observance of the solstice is a universal time for marking and ritual dating back thousands of years to Neolithic times. Solstice, she reminds us, that word means sun standing still. It is not intended to encompass a day. It is intended to encompass that moment of the turn. And it is important for us, in our busy lives, to mark that moment, even if it wasn't exactly at 9:11 a.m. yesterday. After all, we are the people of the iPhone and the Android, the Xbox and the Wii, the Blu-ray and the high definition, and it hardly seems as if we need to observe anything as old and basic as the solstice. And yet we find that we do, that some part of us needs to mark the turning of the year to be one with silence, isolation, and ferment. And marking that moment, even a day or so late, is important. Embracing the darkness takes skills and muscles we do not often use. The darkness is not as familiar to us as the places of light. In the dark lurks that odd shape you can't quite make out, waits that turn ahead of you which you know is coming but you can't quite anticipate, and you know that something might startle you or frighten or anger you, and you know that it's there even though sometimes in the dark it is hard to see, and you can lose things, and you can remember that you have had grief and loss. It is important in this time of year to mark those pieces as well as the turning towards the light. Many of us know now that seasons without light can be difficult for people. People often feel more depressed or lethargic during these months. And it may be that we as a culture have managed to circumvent the natural rhythms of our world by filling the season which should be fallow with extra activity, extra shopping, extra busyness, extra partying and being together. So I'm grateful that Melissa Thompson, our intern minister, introduced me this fall to a powerful book called Healing Through the Dark Emotions by Miriam Greenspan. And Melissa will offer a class based on this book this winter. Miriam talks about the need to understand and converse with the darker emotions, with grief, with anger, with fear. Her experience as a counselor and as a parent has taught her that repression of these emotions leads to personal isolation, to addiction, and to distorted and abusive relationships and pain. It's hard to think about these things. And in our culture, it's particularly hard to make a space for them in this particular time of the year. It is important for us to do so, though, and not simply indulge in a tinsely false lightness of being. As a psychotherapist, Greenspan discerns between what she says are feel-good forms of New Age spirituality and the more psychologically sound ones by assessing whether or not those approaches invite people to explore both the dark and the light, or whether they simply move towards the light, neglecting the imported rootedness in the dark. In the truth, as we stand here today on December 22nd in the year 2013, we know that there is much darkness in our world, much to muse and consider. The very earth upon which we are so dependent is in herself a time of darkness, and many of her people have injustice as their daily attendant. To ignore this is to ignore much of the reality around us. So once again, wiggle your feet on the ground, and let us return to the frame of meditation using this turning, this solstice moment. And I'm going to invite you to lower your gaze and to mentally put down your Christmas shopping lists and your to-do tasks for the new year, to set aside your concerns for all of those things we still need to do, those resolutions we need to start keeping so we can make more. I invite you to feel your feet firm on the ground, to settle into your chair and to breathe out. To breathe out, to fully expel the air from your lungs. And then to breathe in and take in those harder emotions that you may have been pushing aside. Breathe out and release the need to be instantaneously released from darkness. Breathe in and feel the edge of loneliness that may be present. Honor the losses you have encountered this year. Touch the sad edges which you keep tucked out of sight most of your days. Breathe out and know that this darkness is as much a friend as the light. Breathe out and take in the deeper questions. Where are your deepest roots? Breathe in. How have those roots been tended in the day-to-day busyness of your life? Breathe out and acknowledge your need to be still. The places you are craving rest, where you long to put down the burdens of movement and outer growth. Breathe in. Where do you most need to let go of expectations and move forward as the days grow longer once more? Where are the places you are storing up energy for the great growing seasons of sun to come? Breathe out and breathe in. And invite in now the gift of silence, that powerful beacon that we so often resist because it holds our roots and it holds our darkness.
darkness and the light meet inside of me, and they dance me into light. Set me free, set me free. And they dance me into life. Set me free. The darkness and the light meet inside of me, and they dance me into light. Set me free, set me free. And they dance me into light. Set me free. Let it become a meditation and a chant. The darkness and the light meet inside of me, and they dance me into light. Set me free, set me free. And they dance me into life. Set me free.
And so, voila, you are a tree again. And the days are beginning to get longer, just minutes longer each day. But you begin to feel the sap running in your veins. And if that song made anyone want to move, you can move now and feel that sap moving in your veins. Then the energy is flowing, the energy that will become the leaf and the bud and the foliage. And still you rest, and still you store, because these are still the darker days. And here's the good news. It is not too late to take this as a season of rest, in case you have forgotten to do so far. This turning of the season, this assessment of the old, is a time to turn towards one's intentions for the new and next year. This is a New Year's ritual that is far older than the Gregorian calendar, and its two-faced month, Janus, one face of which looks forward and one face of which looks back, which is the other part of the good news. You will continue to have opportunities to reflect for the weeks to come. When we arrive out of the slumber of the deepest days of winter, it can be with that new energy, that new intention, that new commitment. Because the other good news is the light is already returning. It comes back as slowly as it left, but this gives us the opportunity to welcome it back slowly into our lives as well. We have the time to turn with intention towards hope and towards promise. So let us return one more time to the frame of meditation, this turning in this solstice moment. And I want to invite you to think this time about sitting so that you are sitting tall, as if your very being is reaching towards the sky. Because this is not just a moment of personal transformation and clarity. This is also the time when we strive to embrace the entire arc of the world. Ecofeminist Joanna Macy says, "The heart that breaks open can contain the whole universe." So I invite you once again, as you're sitting tall, to lower your gaze or close your eyes, and let us spend just a few more moments setting our intentions, examining what we want and need to be different in our lives, embracing both those darker rhythms of the earth and our need to move towards the light. Return to the thread of your breath. Breathe in and welcome the places of light within you, the places of aspiration, of inspiration, those arms which welcome the bright synchronicities that come your way. Breathe out the dreams you had which no longer serve you, and let them go, not with malice, but just with simple regret. Breathe in and invite in the dreams you will hold, the aspirations which will guide your growth in the coming year. Welcome intention and beauty and wholeness and the slow growth which you have planted. Breathe out and let go of any false expectations of what needs to happen and when it needs to happen, knowing you can take the time you need. Breathe in, knowing you can rest in the fallow and move towards the light, that you can both embrace grief and fear and welcome promise and new life. So I invite you to bring your gaze back into this room and to look around at all the good fellow travelers who are with you on this journey. There might be someone near you that you are particularly thankful for today. Miriam Greenspan says that our goal is to find those places where the inescapable relationship between individual heartbreak and the brokenheartedness of the world intersect, for there we will find healing, and there we will find joy. The darkness and the light meet inside of each of us, and this is the power and the promise of this solstice moment. Let us take it into our hearts and into our engagement with all that is our life, being more present to who we are and the world around us. So may it be.